Have you ever noticed that in the middle of an argument, while everyone else is raising their voice, you go quiet? Not because you don't have thoughts, not because you agree, but because something inside you shuts the door. Your heart starts beating faster, your mind fills with responses you never say, and later, alone, you replay the entire conversation perfectly in your head. You think of what you should have said, what you could have said. But in that moment, silence felt safer. Why does that happen? Why do some minds retreat instead of react? And is that silence weakness or something much deeper? When an argument begins, most people assume there are only two roles, the one who attacks and the one who defends, the loud one and the louder one. But there is a third role that rarely gets understood, the one who goes silent. And if that's you, you know that your silence isn't empty. It's full of thoughts, full of feelings, full of words you never release. Your body feels tight, your chest feels heavy, your throat feels blocked. And while the other person keeps talking, you slowly withdraw into yourself. Not because you don't care, but because something inside you believes speaking will only make it worse. Silence in arguments is often misunderstood as weakness, but psychologically, it is usually protection. When conflict starts, your nervous system quickly decides whether you are safe. Some people move into fight mode. They raise their voice, they push back. Others move into flight, they walk away. And some move into freeze. Freeze doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like composure, calmness, stillness. But internally, your system may be overwhelmed. When voices rise, your brain may register threat, even if the situation isn't physically dangerous. So instead of reacting outwardly, you shut down inwardly. Silence becomes your shield. For many people, this pattern didn't start in adulthood. It started in childhood. If you grew up in a home where expressing disagreement led to punishment, dismissal, or emotional chaos, your nervous system learned something very early. It learned that speaking up during conflict was risky. Maybe you were told you were disrespectful for defending yourself. Maybe arguments escalated quickly and felt unpredictable. Maybe you were the child who tried to keep the peace. Over time, your brain built a rule. Silence keeps things stable. And once that rule is written into your system, it doesn't disappear just because you grow up. There's another layer to this. Some silent minds are deeply analytical. While others argue in real time, you process slowly and internally. Your brain doesn't react with instant words. It gathers data. It scans for meaning. It evaluates consequences. So in the heat of an argument, your thoughts may actually be too complex to express quickly. By the time you've organized your response, the moment has already passed. And afterward, when you're alone, your clarity returns. You replay the situation with precision. You find the perfect sentences. You understand exactly what you feel. But in the moment, your processing style simply moves differently. Silence can also be a sign of emotional regulation, not avoidance. Some people understand that once they speak in anger, they can't take words back, so they choose restraint. They choose to pause rather than escalate. This kind of silence is not about fear. It's about control. It's about knowing your own intensity and deciding not to release it carelessly. In a world that often rewards loud dominance, quiet restraint can look passive. But sometimes it reflects emotional maturity, the ability to absorb heat without immediately generating more of it. However, silence is not always strength. Sometimes it hides unexpressed resentment. When you consistently suppress your voice, your needs don't disappear. They accumulate. You may appear calm externally while internally building frustration. Over time, this can create distance in relationships. The other person might assume everything is fine because you didn't object. Meanwhile, you feel unseen because your inner world stays hidden. The cost of chronic silence is that people cannot respond to what they never hear. And you may begin to feel misunderstood without realizing your silence plays a role in that misunderstanding. There is also a personality dimension to consider. Introverted or highly sensitive individuals often experience conflict more intensely. Raised voices, sharp tones, or aggressive body language can feel overwhelming. Your system absorbs emotional energy deeply, so instead of matching intensity, you retreat to stabilize yourself. This is not fragility, it is heightened perception. You pick up on micro-expressions, subtle shifts in tone. Underlying tension. That awareness can make arguments feel heavier for you than they do for others. Silence becomes a way to manage that sensory and emotional overload. Culturally, silence carries different meanings. In some environments, speaking loudly is associated with confidence and authority. In others, silence represents respect and composure. If you were raised in a culture that valued restraint, you may instinctively hold back during conflict. Or perhaps you were the mediator in your family, the one who calmed others down, the one who absorbed tension so it didn't explode. That role can follow you into adulthood. In arguments, you may instinctively prioritize stability over self-expression, not because you lack opinions, but because you are wired to reduce chaos rather than create it. Here is the paradigm shift. Silence in arguments is not a personality flaw. It is information. It tells you how your nervous system learned to survive tension. It reveals whether you equate conflict with danger or with dialogue. It shows whether your mind prioritizes harmony, safety, analysis, or control. The question is not, why am I so quiet? The deeper question is, what does my silence protect? When you approach your behavior with curiosity instead of judgment, something changes. You stop labeling yourself as weak. You start recognizing the intelligence behind your patterns. And once you understand the function of your silence, you can decide when it serves you and when it limits you. If you stay silent in arguments, you are not alone. Many minds operate this way. Some are protecting themselves from escalation. Some are processing deeply. Some are managing overwhelm. Some are preserving dignity. Your silence has a history, it has logic, it has purpose. But you also deserve relationships where your voice feels safe, where disagreement does not equal rejection, where speaking up does not threaten connection. Silence may have once been your safest option, but understanding it gives you choice. And choice is power. You do not need to transform into the loudest person in the room to be strong. You simply need to recognize that your quiet mind is not empty. It is thoughtful, it is aware, it is deliberate. And when it finally speaks, it often carries more depth than noise ever could.